The vast chamber of the Galactic Confederation's Grand Assembly fell silent as the doors slid open. All eyes, sensor arrays, and perceptual organs turned to witness the arrival of the newest sentient species to join their ranks. Humans had been discovered only a few standard cycles ago, and their rapid ascension to spacefaring capabilities had taken the Confederation by surprise. Ambassador Zillax of the Trolaxian Collective leaned forward, his iridescent scales shimmering under the soft light. He whispered to his aide, "They look so unassuming. Are we certain these are the same beings who managed to repel the Kreshnak incursion?" The aide, a junior diplomat named Vex, nodded imperceptibly. "Indeed, Ambassador. Our intelligence suggests they defeated the Kreshnak fleet with nothing more than retrofitted mining vessels and hastily assembled weapons." As the human delegation made their way to the center of the chamber, murmurs rippled through the assembly. Many species were seeing humans in person for the first time, and the reactions ranged from fascination to thinly veiled disgust. The lead human, a tall woman with dark skin and piercing green eyes, stepped forward. "Esteemed members of the Galactic Confederation, I am Ambassador Amara Chen of Earth. On behalf of humanity, we are honored to stand among you today." High Arbiter Chloron, the ancient Phylaxian who had presided over the Confederation for millennia, raised a gnarled appendage for silence. "Ambassador Chen, we welcome you and your species to this assembly. Your presence here marks a historic moment for our galactic community." As formalities were exchanged, Ambassador Zillax couldn't shake a feeling of unease. He had studied the preliminary reports on human history, and what he found both fascinated and terrified him. How could a species with such a violent past, one that had brought itself to the brink of extinction multiple times, now stand before them as a potential ally? The proceedings continued, with various representatives asking questions about Earth and human culture. Ambassador Chen answered each query with diplomatic grace, but Zillax noticed a glint in her eye that spoke of something more, a hidden depth, perhaps, or a carefully restrained strength. During a recess, Zillax approached the human delegation. "Ambassador Chen, if I may have a moment of your time." Chen turned, offering a warm smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Of course, Ambassador Zillax. How can I assist you?" "I must admit, I find your species intriguing," Zillax began, choosing his words carefully. "Your rise to interstellar travel was remarkably swift, and your handling of the Kreshnak incursion was nothing short of miraculous. Yet your history suggests a propensity for conflict that is concerning." Chen's smile faded slightly, replaced by a look of thoughtful consideration. "Ambassador, humanity's history is indeed marked by conflict, but also by growth and learning. We carry the weight of our past, using it to guide us toward a more peaceful future." Zillax's scales rippled, a sign of skepticism in his species. "A noble sentiment, Ambassador. But how can we be certain that humanity's aggressive tendencies won't resurface?" For a moment, something flashed in Chen's eyes, a hardness that made Zillax instinctively take a step back. But it was gone as quickly as it appeared, replaced once again by diplomatic warmth. "Ambassador Zillax, humanity has indeed fought many wars, but we've also achieved peace. We've united our planet, eliminated poverty, and cured diseases that once ravaged our population. Our capacity for violence is matched only by our capacity for compassion and innovation." She paused, then continued with a hint of steel in her voice. "We join the Confederation not as conquerors, but as partners. We bring with us the lessons of our past and the hope for our shared future." As Chen spoke, Zillax noticed other delegates gathering around, listening intently. The human's words seemed to resonate with many, easing some of the tension that had permeated the chamber since their arrival. High Arbiter Chloron approached, his ancient eyes fixed on Chen. "Ambassador, your words are reassuring, but actions will ultimately prove humanity's intentions. The Confederation has seen many species rise and fall, some bringing great advancements, others great sorrow." Chen nodded solemnly. We understand, High Arbiter. Humanity asks not for blind trust, but for the opportunity to prove ourselves as worthy members of this galactic community. As the recess ended and the delegates returned to their seats, Xylax found himself pondering the complexities of this new species. They were a paradox, capable of great destruction, yet striving for peace. Technologically young, yet advancing at an unprecedented rate. The formal induction ceremony began, with each member species voting on humanity's admission to the Confederation. As the votes were tallied, Xylax made his decision. Despite his reservations, he voted in favor. Something told him that having humanity as an ally would be far preferable to the alternative. As the ceremony concluded and humanity was officially welcomed into the Galactic Confederation, Ambassador Chen's words echoed in Xylax's mind. We bring with us the lessons of our past and the hope for our shared future. Only time would tell if those lessons would lead to a brighter galaxy, or if humanity's warlike history would resurface, plunging them all into conflict. For now, a new chapter in galactic history had begun, and all eyes were on the curious species called humans. The Zarkonian Incident. 5 stellar cycles had passed since humanity's induction into the Galactic Confederation. In that time, humans had proven to be valuable allies, contributing advancements in medicine, terraforming, and faster-than-light travel. Yet, tensions simmered beneath the surface of galactic politics, particularly with the isolationist Zarkonian Empire. Ambassador Amara Chen stood on the observation deck of the Terran diplomatic vessel Olive Branch, gazing at the swirling nebula that marked the border between Confederation and Zarkonian space. Her aide, Lieutenant Commander Jack Harper, approached with a concerned expression. Ambassador, we've received an urgent communication from Confederation High Command. The Zarkonians have accused us of violating their sovereign space. Chen's brow furrowed. That's impossible. We've adhered strictly to the border protocols. They claim one of our research vessels crossed the Crimson Nebula, Harper explained. They're demanding an official apology and reparations. Chen sighed. The Zarkonians were known for their aggressive posturing, but this was a dangerous escalation. Send a message to High Arbiter Chloron. We need to convene an emergency session of the Confederation Council. As the Olive Branch made its way to the Confederation capital world of Harmonex, reports flooded in from across the galaxy. The Zarkonians had mobilized their fleet, positioning warships along the entire length of their border with Confederation space. Upon arrival, Chen was immediately ushered into the Grand Assembly Chamber. The atmosphere was tense, with delegates from hundreds of species engaged in heated debates. High Arbiter Chloron called for order. Ambassador Chen, the Council recognizes Earth's representative. Please, address the Assembly regarding these grave accusations. Chen stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. Esteemed members of the Confederation, I assure you that humanity has not violated Zarkonian space. We have meticulously followed all agreed-upon protocols. These accusations are baseless and appear to be a pretext for aggression. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Ambassador Xylax of the Tralaxian Collective spoke up. While I do not doubt Ambassador Chen's sincerity, we cannot ignore the gravity of this situation. The Zarkonians are not known for idle threats. Indeed, rumbled Grokthar, the imposing representative of the silicon-based patrons. Perhaps it would be wise to offer the apology and reparations. The cost would be insignificant compared to the potential for conflict. Chen shook her head. With all due respect, capitulating to false accusations will only embolden the Zarkonians. We must stand firm in the face of this clear intimidation tactic. As the debate raged on, a commotion at the chamber's entrance drew everyone's attention. A Zarkonian delegation, led by Grand Marshal Kazaril, strode in unannounced. Their crimson scales gleamed under the chamber's lights, and their eyes blazed with barely contained hostility. We grow tired of your deliberations, Kazaril snarled. The human vessel's incursion was an act of war. Submit to our demands, or face the consequences. The chamber erupted in chaos. Species that had coexisted peacefully for millennia now found themselves on the brink of conflict. Chen locked eyes with Kazriel, seeing the anticipation of battle in the Zarkonian's gaze. High Arbiter Chloron intervened, his ancient voice cutting through the din. Grand Marshal Kazriel, your presence here is a violation of diplomatic protocol. We will not be coerced into hasty action. Kazriel sneered. Protocol? Your precious confederation hides behind words while encroaching on our territory. No more. You have one solar rotation to meet our demands, or we will take what is owed to us by force. As the Zarkonian delegation stormed out, Chen approached Chloron. High Arbiter, we need time. If we can prove our innocence. Chloron raised a gnarled hand. Ambassador Chen, I fear time is a luxury we no longer have. The Zarkonians have been looking for an excuse to expand their empire. This accusation, true or false, may be the spark that ignites a galactic war. Chen's mind raced. Earth had faced similar crises in its history, moments where conflict seemed inevitable. But they had also learned the value of diplomacy, of finding solutions beyond simple capitulation or aggression. High Arbiter, with your permission, I'd like to propose a compromise, Chen said, an idea forming. Chloron nodded wearily. Speak, Ambassador. We are in dire need of solutions. Chen addressed the assembly. Esteemed delegates, I propose we invite the Zarkonians to join us in a joint scientific expedition to the Crimson Nebula. We can use this opportunity to establish clear, technologically enforced boundaries and foster cooperation rather than conflict. The chamber buzzed with discussion. Ambassador Zilak spoke up, his scales shimmering with cautious optimism. An intriguing proposal, but will the Zarkonians agree to such a venture? They may, if we appeal to their pride, Chen explained. We'll frame it as a challenge, a chance to demonstrate their scientific and technological prowess alongside the Confederation. As the Council debated the merits of Chen's proposal, Lieutenant Commander Harper approached with urgent news. Ambassador, we've received a transmission from Earth. Our deep space monitoring stations have detected unusual activity within Zarkonian space. It appears they're mobilizing far more than a border fleet. Chen's heart sank. The situation was escalating faster than anyone had anticipated. She turned back to the council, her voice grave. Esteemed delegates, we may have less time than we thought. I urge the Confederation to prepare for all contingencies while we pursue diplomatic solutions. High Arbiter Chloron nodded solemnly. Agreed. We shall extend the olive branch with one hand, but we must be prepared to defend ourselves with the other. As the council session adjourned, Chen couldn't shake the feeling that the galaxy stood on the precipice of a conflict unlike any it had seen before. Humanity had joined the Confederation, hoping to forge a peaceful future among the stars. Now they faced the prospect of bringing their long history of warfare to a galactic stage. The next few hours would determine whether diplomacy would prevail or if the spark of human ingenuity would be needed to face the inferno of Zarkonian aggression. As Chen left the chamber to prepare for the negotiations ahead, she silently hoped that the lessons of Earth's turbulent past would help guide the Confederation through the crisis that loomed on the horizon. Outbreak of war. The tense atmosphere aboard the Confederation diplomatic vessel Concordia was palpable as it approached the designated neutral meeting point in the Crimson Nebula. Ambassador Amara Chen stood on the bridge, flanked by representatives from a dozen Confederation species. Opposite them, the imposing Zarkonian warship Fist of Kazriel loomed against the backdrop of swirling cosmic dust. "They're hailing us," announced the Concordia's communications officer, a telepathic Medusan. Chen nodded. On screen, the holographic display flickered to life, revealing Grand Marshal Kazriel's scowling visage. "Confederation envoys," he growled, "you have one final chance to submit to our demands before we take what is rightfully ours." Chen stepped forward, her voice steady. "Grand Marshal, we come in the spirit of cooperation. We propose a joint scientific expedition to establish clear boundaries and foster understanding between our peoples." Kazriel's eyes narrowed. You dare to insult us with such a proposal? The Zarkonian Empire does not engage in childish games of exploration. It is no game, Marshal, Chen countered. It's an opportunity to showcase the strengths of both our civilizations and avoid unnecessary conflict. For a moment, it seemed as though Casriel might consider the offer. But then, his expression hardened. Enough. Your deceptions end now. The Zarkonian Empire claims this nebula and all territories beyond it as our domain. Surrender or be destroyed. The transmission cut off abruptly. Chen turned to her fellow diplomats, their faces a mix of shock and resignation. It seems diplomacy has failed, she said grimly. We must prepare for the worst. No sooner had the words left her mouth than the ship rocked violently. Alarms blared as the tactical officer shouted, multiple weapons locks. The Zarkonians are opening fire. Evasive maneuvers, Chen commanded, falling seamlessly into a leadership role honed by years of crisis management on Earth. Send out a distress call to all Confederation forces. The Zarkonians have initiated hostilities. As the Concordia weaved through a barrage of energy weapons, the vast emptiness of space came alive with the fires of war. Zarkonian warships poured out of the nebula, their numbers far exceeding initial intelligence estimates. Within hours, reports flooded in from across Confederation space. The Zarkonian attack wasn't limited to the nebula. It was a full-scale invasion on multiple fronts. Peaceful worlds that had known millennia of tranquility now found themselves under siege. On Harmonex, the Confederation capital, the Grand Assembly convened an emergency session. High Arbiter Cloran's usually calm demeanor was shaken as he addressed the gathered representatives. For the first time in 50,000 years, the Galactic Confederation faces total war, he announced gravely. We must unite as never before to repel this aggression. Ambassador Zolax, his scales dulled with stress, spoke up. But many of our worlds have no significant military forces. How can we stand against the Zarkonian war machine? All eyes turned to the human delegation. Lieutenant Commander Jack Harper, standing in for the absent Ambassador Chen, stepped forward. Earth stands ready to assist in the defense of the Confederation. While we had hoped never to use them, we have defensive technologies and strategies that may turn the tide. A murmur rippled through the chamber. Many remembered the reports of humanity's violent past, their potential for warfare that had caused such concern when they first joined the Confederation. Now that very potential might be their salvation. High Arbiter Cloran nodded solemnly. Very well. The Confederation hereby activates all mutual defense protocols. Commander Harper, we will need humanity's full expertise in this dark hour. As the assembly adjourned, Harper transmitted encrypted orders to Earth. Within days, human warships began arriving at key strategic points throughout Confederation space. Unlike the elegant, energy-based weapons of most Confederation species, human vessels bristled with kinetic weaponry, electronic warfare suites, and unconventional defenses that confuse Zarkonian targeting systems. On the front lines, Ambassador Chen found herself coordinating a desperate defense of a Confederation colony world. Her diplomatic vessel had been hastily retrofitted with weapons, its crew supplemented by a mix of species all working together against the common threat. Zarkonian cruiser, approaching Vector 227, called out a Valaxian sensor operator. Chen's mind raced, recalling historical battles from Earth's past. Rotate our shield harmonics to match their weapon frequency, she ordered. Prepare to fire our mass drivers on my mark. The human tactic caught the Zarkonians off guard. Their energy weapons dissipated harmlessly against the recalibrated shields, while the Concordia's magnetically accelerated slugs tore through the cruiser's hull. Similar scenes played out across the battlefront. Human ingenuity, combined with the diverse strengths of other Confederation species, began to slow the Zarkonian advance. But the cost was high. Worlds burned, and countless lives were lost as the galaxy erupted into a conflict of unprecedented scale. In a secure bunker deep beneath the surface of Harmonex, Commander Harper briefed the Confederation War Council on humanity's most closely guarded technologies: antimatter weapons, nanite swarms, and artificial intelligence battle networks. These weapons were developed during the darkest periods of our history, Harper explained, his voice heavy. We swore never to use them again. But faced with the extinction of not just our species, but all free peoples of the galaxy, we offer them in defense of the Confederation. The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The power to destroy entire star systems, to rewrite the very fabric of matter, now lay before them. It was a Pandora's box that, once opened, could never be closed. High Arbiter Cloran, looking older than ever, spoke softly. The use of such weapons would forever change the face of our galaxy. Is there truly no other way? Harper's expression was grim. We continue to search for alternatives, High Arbiter. But as we speak, more worlds fall to the Zarkonian onslaught. We must be prepared to do whatever is necessary to ensure the survival of our civilization. As the War Council debated the moral implications of unleashing such devastating weapons, reports came in of a major Zarkonian push towards the core worlds of the Confederation. The next few days would determine the fate of galactic civilization. In the midst of the chaos, Ambassador Chen's voice crackled over the communications network, broadcasting to all Confederation forces. Stand firm, defenders of freedom. Humanity has faced the brink of annihilation before and emerged stronger. Together, we will weather this storm. The night is darkest just before the dawn, and our dawn will come. As her words echoed across the stars, ships of all shapes and sizes, crewed by beings of countless forms, rallied to the call. The galaxy held its breath, poised on the edge of either a new era of peace or an abyss of unimaginable destruction. The war that would define the future of the Galactic Confederation had only just begun, and at its heart stood humanity. Their greatest hope, and perhaps their greatest fear. The turning point. The war had raged for nearly a standard galactic year. Countless worlds lay in ruins, their once thriving civilizations reduced to ash and debris. The Zarkonian advance had been slowed, but not halted, and the cost in lives and resources had been staggering. In a hidden base deep within the Horsehead Nebula, Ambassador Amara Chen stood before a holographic map of the galaxy, red markers indicating Zarkonian-controlled systems vastly outnumbering the blue of Confederation space. "We're losing," she said quietly to Lieutenant Commander Harper, who stood at her side. Harper nodded grimly. "The Confederation Council is still debating the use of our most powerful weapons. They fear the collateral damage almost as much as defeat." Chen's eyes narrowed as she studied the map. "We need a game-changer, Jack. Something the Zarkonians won't expect." As if on cue, a junior officer burst into the room. "Ambassador, Commander, we're picking up a massive energy surge from the Zarkonian home system." The holographic display shifted, zooming in on the heart of enemy territory. A swirling vortex of energy was forming, growing larger by the second. "It's some kind of hyperspatial rift," Harper said, his voice filled with awe and terror. "They're trying to bring in reinforcements from somewhere else." Chen's mind raced. Or something else. "This could be our chance, Jack. Gather every ship we can spare. We're going to launch an all-out assault on the Zarkonian homeworld." Harper looked at her in shock. "Ambassador, with all due respect, that's suicide. We don't have the numbers or the firepower to." "We don't need to win," Chen interrupted. "We just need to disrupt whatever they're doing. Sometimes, the best defense is a completely insane offense." Within hours, a ragtag fleet of Confederation vessels had assembled. It was a testament to the diversity of the Alliance. Sleek Trolaxian cruisers flew alongside bulky Petran mining ships retrofitted with weapons. At the center of the formation, a handful of Earth's most advanced warships led the charge. As they approached Zarkonian space, Chen addressed the fleet. "Soldiers of the Confederation, I won't lie to you. This mission is dangerous, perhaps even foolhardy, but in the face of annihilation, we must be willing to take risks. Today, we fight not just for our own survival, but for the very fabric of our galaxy. The fleet dropped out of hyperspace on the outskirts of the Zarkonian system. Immediately, they were met with a hail of weapon fire. But the Zarkonians, focused on their mysterious project, had left their defenses spread thin. All ships, commence attack pattern Omega, Chen commanded. It was a strategy borrowed from ancient Earth naval battles, a chaotic, seemingly random assault designed to confuse and overwhelm the enemy. Confederation ships darted between Zarkonian vessels, unleashing a barrage of weapons fire. Human railguns spat hypersonic projectiles that shredded enemy shields. Tralaxian phase disruptors caused Zarkonian ships to flicker in and out of existence. Petron graviton beams warped space itself, crushing smaller craft like insects. In the midst of the chaos, Chen noticed a pattern in the Zarkonian fleet movements. They're protecting something, she realized. All ships focus fire on coordinates 227 by 184. The Confederation fleet reoriented, concentrating their attack on a single point in space. As the barrage intensified, a massive space station shimmed into view, its cloaking field disrupted by the assault. "That's it," Harper exclaimed. "That's the source of the energy readings." Chen's voice was steel as she gave the order. "All ships, fire everything you've got at that station. Bring it down." The combined firepower of the Confederation fleet slammed into the Zarkonian station. For a moment, it seemed as though their efforts would be in vain. Then, with a blinding flash, the station's reactor went critical. The resulting explosion was like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. The hyperspatial rift, destabilized by the station's destruction, began to collapse in on itself. Zarkonian ships were pulled in by the hundreds, crushed into singularities as space-time twisted and warped. "All ships, full reverse thrust," Chen shouted. "Get us out of here." The Confederation fleet retreated, watching in awe as the rift continued to grow, consuming more and more of the Zarkonian home system. Within minutes, the entirety of Zarkonian space had been swallowed by the cosmic maelstrom. As the rift finally stabilized and began to shrink, an eerie quiet fell over the battlefield. The remaining Zarkonian ships, cut off from their leadership and home, began to power down their weapons. Harper turned to Chen, his eyes wide. "Ambassador, I think we just won the war." Chen nodded slowly, the weight of what they had just witnessed settling on her shoulders. Perhaps, but at what cost? In the days that followed, the true impact of the battle became clear. The Zarkonian Empire, once the greatest threat the Confederation had ever faced, had been virtually wiped from existence. The few surviving Zarkonians, stunned by the loss of their homeworld, surrendered unconditionally. As news of the victory spread, celebrations erupted across Confederation space. But for those who had witnessed the battle firsthand, the mood was more somber. They had glimpsed the true destructive potential of the galaxy and of humanity's ingenuity. In an emergency session of the Confederation Council, Ambassador Chen stood before the assembled delegates. "We have achieved victory," she began, her voice heavy. "But we must not let this moment blind us to the lessons of this conflict. We have seen the face of total war, and it is a visage too terrible to behold again." She paused, looking out at the diverse beings before her. Humanity joined this confederation, hoping to find peace among the stars. Instead, we brought with us the specter of our warlike past. It is a burden we will carry, a reminder of the responsibility we bear. High Arbiter Cloran stepped forward. "Ambassador Chen, humanity's actions saved countless lives and preserved the freedom of our galaxy. How do you propose we move forward from this point?" Chen's gaze was resolute as she responded. "We must dedicate ourselves anew to the principles of peace and cooperation that founded this confederation, and we must remain ever vigilant against the rise of tyranny and aggression, both from without and from within." As the council chambers erupted in discussion, Chen knew that the galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had proven itself both the Confederation's greatest asset and its most dangerous wildcard. The challenge now would be to forge a future where their potential for destruction could be channeled into creation, where the ingenuity that had won the war could be turned to healing the scars it had left behind. The Galactic Confederation had survived its trial by fire, but as Chen looked out at the stars, she couldn't help but wonder, in averting one catastrophe, had they sown the seeds of another. Only time would tell if the lessons of the Zarkonian War would lead to a new era of peace, or if the galaxy was merely catching its breath before the next, even greater conflict. Aftermath and reflection. A decade had passed since the end of the Zarkonian War. The Galactic Confederation, once on the brink of annihilation, had entered an unprecedented era of peace and reconstruction. Yet, the scars of the conflict ran deep, both in the burned-out husks of once thriving worlds and in the collective psyche of the galaxy's inhabitants. On the newly established neutral world of New Harmony, Ambassador Amara Chen stood before the inaugural class of the Galactic Academy of Diplomacy and Strategy. The lecture hall was filled with beings from hundreds of species, all eager to learn from the woman who had played such a pivotal role in the war's end. "Welcome, future diplomats and strategists," Chen began, her voice carrying the weight of experience. "Are here because your peoples believe in the promise of a united galaxy. But unity, as we have learned, comes at a price." She activated a holographic display, showing the galaxy as it had been before the war. "A decade ago, we faced an enemy that threatened to destroy everything we held dear. In our desperation, we turned to methods and technologies that we had long feared to use." The display shifted, showing the aftermath of the final battle, the cosmic void where the Zarkonian home system had once been. A murmur ran through the audience. "The victory we achieved came at a terrible cost," Chen continued. "Not just in lives lost or worlds destroyed, but in the unleashing of powers that we may never be able to fully contain again. Humanity's history is filled with such moments, times when, in our drive to survive, we created tools that forever changed the course of our development." She paced across the stage, her gaze sweeping over the assembled students. Some in the Confederation hail humans as saviors, others fear us as potential conquerors. The truth, as always, lies somewhere in between. We are neither gods nor demons, but a species shaped by adversity, driven by an unyielding will to survive and thrive. The hologram changed again, displaying scenes from the ongoing reconstruction efforts across the galaxy. In the wake of the war, we have seen unprecedented cooperation between species. Former enemies now work side by side to rebuild shattered worlds. The Confederation has grown stronger, more united than ever before. But with this unity comes responsibility. Chen's expression grew solemn. The knowledge and technologies unleashed during the war cannot be unlearned. Every species in this room now has access to weapons capable of destroying entire star systems. The peace we enjoy is built upon the understanding that using such weapons would mean mutually assured destruction. A Tralaxian student raised a hand, his scales shimmering with curiosity. "Ambassador Chen, given humanity's crucial role in the war, why hasn't Earth assumed a more dominant position in Confederation politics?" Chen smiled sadly. "An excellent question. The truth is, we fear our own potential as much as some in the Confederation do. Humanity's history is a cautionary tale of power used unwisely. We believe that true strength lies not in domination, but in cooperation and mutual growth." She turned back to address the entire class. "This is the great challenge that faces your generation. How do we maintain peace in a galaxy where the capacity for total war is always at our fingertips? How do we channel the ingenuity that creates such terrible weapons towards the betterment of all species?" The hologram shifted one final time, showing the diversity of life across the Confederation, from the gas giant dwellers of the Jovian Collective to the crystalline beings of the Silicon Concordance. The answer, I believe, lies in understanding. In the years since the war, we have seen an explosion of cultural exchange programs, scientific collaborations, and interspecies partnerships. Chen's voice grew passionate. By learning from each other, By celebrating our differences rather than fearing them, we create bonds that are stronger than any weapon. We build a civilization that is resilient not because of its capacity for violence, but because of its commitment to mutual prosperity. A Valaxian student spoke up, their ancient eyes filled with concern. But, Ambassador, what if another threat like the Zarkonians arises? How can we defend ourselves without resorting to the same destructive measures? Chen nodded, acknowledging the weight of the question. We must be ever vigilant, yes, but our first line of defense should always be diplomacy, understanding, and a commitment to addressing the root causes of conflict before they escalate. And if war does come again, we must face it with the collective wisdom and restraint that we have so dearly earned. As the lecture drew to a close, Chen looked out at the sea of faces before her. The future leaders of the Galactic Confederation. You are the guardians of the peace we have won. Your decisions, your actions, will shape the destiny of countless beings across the stars. Remember the lessons of the past, but do not be bound by them. Forge a future that is worthy of the sacrifices made to secure it. The students rose, offering a standing ovation that echoed through the hall. As Chen stepped down from the podium, she was approached by a familiar face, Ambassador Zilax, his scales now bearing the distinguished patterns of a senior diplomat. A stirring lecture, my friend, Zilax said warmly. You've given them much to think about. Chen smiled. Let's hope it's enough. The real test will come when they're faced with the hard decisions, the moments that define a civilization's character. Zilax nodded sagely. Indeed, but I have faith in the future we're building. Who would have thought, all those years ago, that the species we once feared might bring war to our stars would instead teach us the true meaning of peace? As they walked out of the lecture hall, Chen and Zilax paused to look up at the sky. The stars shone brightly, each one a testament to the vastness and wonder of the galaxy they had sworn to protect. You know, Chen said softly, there's an old saying on Earth. The price of peace is eternal vigilance. Zilax's scales rippled in agreement, a wise sentiment. And perhaps with the lessons we've learned, the price of that vigilance need not be paid in blood and fire, but in understanding and compassion. As night fell on New Harmony, the lights of the Galactic Academy of Diplomacy and Strategy glowed like a beacon of hope. Within its walls, the next generation of leaders studied and debated, prepared to face whatever challenges the universe might bring. And at the heart of their education lay a simple, powerful truth, that in a galaxy of infinite diversity, the greatest strength comes not from the ability to wage war, but from the courage to wage peace. The legacy of the Zarkonian War would forever be a complex one, a reminder of the terrible potential for destruction that lay within all sentient beings, but also a testament to the indomitable spirit of cooperation that could arise in the face of existential threat. As the Galactic Confederation continued to evolve, shaped by the hard-won wisdom of its member species, it stood as living proof that even in the darkest of times, hope and unity could prevail. And at the center of it all stood humanity, no longer feared as potential conquerors, nor revered as infallible saviors, but accepted as partners in the grand tapestry of galactic civilization. Their journey from a war-torn past to a peaceful future served as an inspiration to all, a reminder that no matter how dark the night, dawn would always come, if only they had the courage and wisdom to see it through together.